everyone, Andrew here, bringing you another video review, and today we're going to be doing Batman Hush. Take a look at this comic cover right here. Now, Batman Hush is a story that deals with many different aspects of Batman's life, both personally and professionally. In addition to that, it has a huge cast of characters, consisting of the majority of Batman's villains, allies, and loved ones. Now, the basic story of Hush is that many of Batman's villains are coming out of the woodwork, all at the same time. And they're doing things that normally they wouldn't do, acting in ways they would normally never act. Totally out of character. Even for the crazy ones and unpredictable ones like Joker and Harley Quinn, they're even acting in ways that normally they wouldn't act. And it's throwing Batman's life into total complete chaos, trying to figure out why his rogues are doing what they're doing. And there's a reason. There's a new villain in Gotham, and his name is Hush. And Hush is out to destroy Batman. He's been stalking him, watching him, using Batman's allies and villains alike as pawns, tools in this deadly game to destroy the Dark Knight forever. And while this is all going on, Batman's life with Catwoman starts to speed up. Up until this point, Batman and Catwoman have had a on-again, off-again flirtatious relationship, a game of cat and mouse, chasing each other around. However, recently Batman starts to think there's more to this relationship than just flirting and chasing each other. Maybe there's deep emotions and feelings in both of them for each other. It gets to the point where Batman starts to trust Catwoman, let her into his life, reveal his identity as Batman. However, with Hush around, nothing is ever safe. So, will Hush succeed in destroying the Batman? Or will Batman be able to fight back his enemies? Will Catwoman and Batman's relationship blossom and grow? Or is Catwoman just another pawn in the game of Hush? Friends will become enemies. Old people will return. And in the end, no one will come out of this story unscathed. Let's get into the good, the bad, and whether or not you should get it. Now see, Hush is riddled with a lot of good and a lot of bad. And in doing this good and bad session, I will be laying down some spoilers. So if you haven't read the book yet and you don't want to hear the spoilers, I recommend you kind of go to the last few minutes where I give my final analysis of the book. With that said, let's do good. Let's start off with the first glaring good, and that would be art. Jim Lee jumps onto the Batman title as the artist, and Jim Lee is a fantastic artist. One of the best artists in comics, period. He was well known for his work in the 90s, and when he came on to Batman, he did a fantastic job with detail, the bodies, the faces, everything just looks beautiful. Jim Lee's one of my favorite artists. Now, as you can see here, I have the special edition of Batman Hush. But at Comic-Con, I got my 2 Hush individual trade paperbacks signed by Jim Lee, because he's that good, and the art in this is that good. It is absolutely beautiful. In addition to that, the characters are all portrayed in character. Not one character in this feels out of place. I mean, obviously the villains are acting in ways they don't normally act, but that's for the sake of the story. But in general, all the characters feel true to form. Batman acts like Batman. Nightwing does what Nightwing does. Catwoman does what Catwoman does. Joker is the Joker. They all feel true to form, which is nice. None of them out of character. And the relationship with Batman and Catwoman really starts to grow in this, and it's done nicely. Now, say what you want about Jeff Loeb, but at least he's had the balls to go out there and push Catwoman and Batman's relationship. I don't know what it is about Catwoman and Batman that intimidate many writers. There's very few writers that actually want to go out there and do something with their relationship. However, up until this point, Catwoman and Batman have had a flirtatious relationship at best. And with Jeff Loeb pushing their love life, he has opened the doors for many other writers to freely and without any fear write the characters' relationships and do it in a great way. Like I said, Jeff Loeb opened the door for many people, and he did it in a way where it didn't overbear on us the relationship. It was given just enough, but not too little. So the relationship between Catwoman and Batman is very nicely done here. And the story on the whole is very well written. What I have to say about Hush is that going into it, if you really look at the details, you might be able to actually figure out who Hush is. there are a few points where they try to do some red herrings and try to deter you from the true identity of Hush, but it can be a little easy to determine Hush's identity, but I will talk about that in the bad. But for the most part, the writing is great. The story is well paced, and with the exception of maybe one part here and there, and the ending, the story is good. Bad. Well, like I said, the identity of Hush. The identity of Hush can be predictable for people that look at it and really kind of think of it. If you just go through this book and start reading it and not pause and stop to absorb what you have been reading, you might not get the identity of Hush, which is actually a good thing. It's better to be surprised at the end. However, if you stop and think, like I did, you kind of go, I bet it's going to be you. Yeah, it's going to be you. And it could happen. It doesn't take away too much from the story, but it can hurt the overall surprise and shock factor at the end. In addition to that, the ending of the book could have been handled a little bit better. Now here's where one of the spoilers come in. At one point, Jason Todd returns, and it is done fantastically. It is the climax of the book, but it's not the end of the book. See, it's actually the second to last issue, because Jason Todd returns, and you're all pumped, and then the momentum kind of slows down towards the end of the book, because then we actually deal with the final confrontation between Hush and Batman. It would have been nice if the reveal of Jason Todd coming back was actually the end of the book, or at least the ending could have worked better so the momentum would have transitioned into the ending of the book. But the momentum kind of stops there, and the ending kind of fizzles out. So it would have been better if the ending was done up a little bit, well, with the pace and with the momentum, and just better. Lastly is rereading value. Batman Hush doesn't have the best rereading value out of all the books in the Batman collection. I'm going to get into this a little bit more when I actually talk about whether or not you get it. But the first time you read Hush will probably be the best time you read Hush, because after you figure out everything that happens, everything kind of gets predictable. Which brings me into whether or not you should get it. Well, there's a lot of debate among the fan groups on whether or not Hush is a good story or a bad story. And there's some passionate people supporting each side. A lot of people absolutely hate Hush, and a lot of people absolutely love it. Very few people are actually in between. Now, when I first read Hush, I adored it. It was one of my favorite Batman stories. And then I kind of lost interest in it, and it became a little less of a good story for me. However, recently I started liking Hush a lot more. And I think I finally realized the reason why people don't like Hush so much. And it's one of the bads that I pointed out. And that is rereading value. When you first read Hush, and this is directed to many people that read Hush in the issues, it is a great story. Well done, and the mystery can be fun if you kind of just go through the story and not stop to think. But after you know who Hush is and what goes down and how everything is dealt with, it kind of gets predictable and slower of a story and doesn't quite work out the way it should. And it is a bad. It doesn't quite have the rereading value of, say, The Long Halloween or Batman Year One or Nightfall. But putting that aside, you can't take away from the enjoyment of Hush. It's a good story, and I dare say an essential story to the Batman collection. A lot of things happen in this. The return of Jason Todd, the relationship between Batman and Catwoman, and the introduction of the character known as Hush. Now, Hush may not get a lot of exposure in this, which could be considered another downfall, but the character becomes a major player later on in other storylines like Heart of Hush, or House of Hush, or Hush Money. I do recommend picking up Hush. There's a lot of people that tell you not to get it, and there's a lot of people that will say it's fantastic. I personally enjoy it and consider it one of my favorite Batman stories. What I recommend to new readers is just sit down and read it and get your own opinion. Like I said, the first read will probably be your best read. However, you should establish your own opinion on the story yourself. In the end, it is recommended getting this story. It's fun and essential to your Batman reading. So if you read this and turn out that you hate this story, then at least you know that you got it in it was necessary for later Batman stories. However, I think if you have an open mind and realize that not every story is perfect, you will find Hush to be a fantastic story that's well worth getting. So, I've had a roller coaster relationship with this little story. I loved it, then I didn't like it, and now I love it again. And I'm happy to say that I do still love it. It's a great story and well worth picking up. With that said, I'm going to end this review here. This is Andrew saying peace out for now.